The last guest stumbled out into the rain-slicked streets of Brooklyn, their laughter echoing like a fading heartbeat, leaving me alone with the wreckage of red Solo cups and half-eaten charcuterie that no one cared about anymore. I stood there, Nora Hayes, 28 and unraveling at the seams, wiping glitter from my cheeks as if it could erase the hollow ache in my chest, the kind that comes from throwing a party to prove you're alive, only to feel more invisible than ever. Then the door clicked shut, and she was still there, Elena Vasquez, her emerald dress clinging like a secret, eyes locking onto mine with a gravity that pulled the air from the room, whispering without words that the night wasn't done with us yet. It started innocently enough, or at least that's what I tell myself later, when the memories twisted like vines around my heart. The party had been my desperate bid for normalcy, a 30th birthday bash for my roommate who'd bailed last minute, leaving me to host strangers in our cramped walk-up on Atlantic Avenue. Music had pulsed through the speakers, old-school R&B mixed with indie folk that made everyone sway like they had somewhere to go, and for 3 glorious hours, I'd forgotten the divorce papers still warm in my mailbox from 6 months back, the one that ended my 5-year mistake of a marriage to a man who never saw me. Not really. I'd laughed too loud, poured too much Pinot, flirted harmlessly with a barista from down the block, all to drown out the voice in my head that said, "You're 28, Nora, and what do you have to show for it?" A job copy-editing romance novels you can't bring yourself to read, a cat named Whiskey who judges you more than your therapist, and a heart that's been straight as an arrow your whole life, until now. Elena had arrived fashionably late, slipping through the crowd like smoke, her laugh cutting through the din as she charmed my coworker into spilling his life story over deviled eggs. She was 30, a graphic designer from Queens with a portfolio of album covers that screamed rebellion, bold lines, hidden depths, and a smile that could disarm a room full of skeptics. We'd met once before, at a mutual friend's gallery opening in Soho, where she'd complimented my vintage leather jacket and I'd mumbled something about her earrings looking like fallen stars. Tonight, though, she lingered near the kitchen island, our eyes catching over the rim of her glass, a spark that felt less like flirtation and more like recognition, as if we'd been waiting for this collision without knowing it. As the clock ticked past 1 a.m., the exodus began. Coats were grabbed, Uber summoned, goodbyes slurred into hugs that lingered a beat too long. I busied myself stacking plates, avoiding the pang of abandonment that always hit post-party when her voice sliced through the quiet. "Need a hand, birthday girl? Or are you planning to let the mess haunt you till morning?" I turned, and there she was, sleeves rolled up, auburn curls escaping their loose bun, her hazel eyes reflecting the fairy lights I'd strung haphazardly across the ceiling. My pulse stuttered. "Only if you're not in a rush to get back to whatever awaits you out there," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. She smirked, that slow curve of lips that promised mischief, and said, "The subway's a beast this late. Besides, I like the company." Lies, maybe, but the kind that felt like truth in the dim light. We moved in tandem, a silent choreography born of exhaustion and something electric humming beneath it. She rinsed glasses while I wiped counters, our shoulders brushing in the narrow space, sending jolts I tried to ignore. Conversation flowed easy at first, complaints about the MTA, raves about that new talk area in Bushwick, the way New York's relentless energy could both energize and eviscerate you. But as the sink drained and the last cup dried, the air thickened, charged with the unsaid. I caught her watching me, not with the casual appraisal of a friend, but with an intensity that peeled back layers, exposing the raw edges I'd hidden under sarcasm and small talk. "Sit," I said finally, gesturing to the couch amid the confetti-strewn rug. "You've earned a drink that isn't bottom-shelf vodka." She laughed, low and throaty, settling into the cushions with a grace that made the room feel smaller, more intimate. I poured us each a finger of the good scotch, the one I'd saved for emergencies, and handed her the glass, our fingers grazing. Heat bloomed in my chest, unfamiliar and insistent, like a match struck in the dark. We clinked, the sound sharp against the distant hum of traffic, and for a moment, we just breathed, the city outside a blurred watercolor through the rain-lashed window. "Tell me something real, Nora," she said, swirling her drink, her voice dropping to a timbre that vibrated through me. "Why throw a party like this if it leaves you looking like you're carrying the weight of the world?" I blinked, caught off guard by the directness, the way she saw through the facade, without effort. My throat tightened. How to explain the void? The marriage that had been a cage disguised as comfort. The way I'd woken up one morning realizing I'd spent years performing heterosexuality because it was easier than questioning the flicker of envy I'd felt watching couples like us. Women who moved through life unapologetically entwined. Maybe because alone feels like failure, I admitted, staring into the amber liquid. Or maybe I'm just tired of pretending everything's fine when it's not. Her hand found mine then, tentative at first, then firm, her thumb tracing a slow circle on my knuckle that sent shivers racing up my arm. "You're not pretending now," she murmured, and when I looked up, her face was close. Too close, lips parted, eyes dark with a hunger that mirrored my own buried one. The world narrowed to the space between us, the party debris forgotten, the rain a soft percussion urging us forward. I leaned in, or maybe she did, and our mouths met in a kiss that was all fire and fragility, tasting of scotch and salt and the sweet terror of finally naming what I denied. It wasn't gentle, that first press of lips. It was a dam breaking, years of suppressed longing crashing through in a rush that left me breathless. Her hands cupped my face, fingers threading into my hair, pulling me closer as if afraid I'd vanish. I responded with equal fervor, my palms sliding up her arms, feeling the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of her dress, the subtle strength in her frame that spoke of yoga classes and midnight runs along the East River. We broke apart gasping, foreheads touching, and in that suspended heartbeat, reality intruded, the ring of my phone on the counter, a text from my ex checking in like he still had rights to my chaos. I pulled back, heart hammering, but Elena didn't let go entirely, her hand lingering on my thigh, an anchor in the storm. "Nora," she whispered, voice husky, "that wasn't nothing. Tell me you felt it too." I nodded, words failing me, because how could I articulate the seismic shift? The way her touch had unlocked something primal, a truth I'd skirted my whole life. That love, real love, didn't come in the shapes society handed out. It came in stolen moments after parties, in the eyes of a woman who stayed when everyone else left. But as we sank deeper into the couch, bodies aligning with an instinct that felt ancient, I sensed the undercurrent in her, the slight tremor in her breath, the way her gaze flickered with shadows I couldn't yet read. The night stretched on, confessions spilling like the rain outside, my failed marriage, the therapy sessions where I'd danced around my sexuality, the quiet crushes on college roommates I'd buried under frat party hookups. She listened, her fingers never leaving mine, offering stories of her own, growing up in a sprawling Queens family where machismo ruled, coming out at 22 to a mother who cried but eventually baked empanadas for her first girlfriend. Yet even in that vulnerability, Elena held back, a veil over her eyes when the conversation turned to futures, to what-ifs. "What about you?" I pressed, emboldened by the scotch, and the way her leg pressed against mine. "What's the truth you're hiding behind that smile?" She hesitated, lips curving in a bittersweet arc, and for a moment, the room felt heavier, the fairy lights dimming as if bracing for revelation. "It's not easy to say," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "But tonight, with you, I think it's time." The words hung there, pregnant with promise and peril, as thunder rumbled over the bridge, shaking the windows. Little did I know, the truth she carried wasn't just about love, it was about a heart quite literally on the edge, one that had been fighting battles I couldn't imagine, battles that would test us both in ways that would either forge us unbreakable or shatter everything we'd just begun to build. Dawn crept in like an uninvited guest, gray light filtering through the blinds to paint stripes across Elena's sleeping form. I hadn't slept much after her confession. the weight of it settling over me like a fog I couldn't shake. She told me everything in hushed tones as we lay tangled on the couch, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing lazy patterns on her back. At 29, Elena had been diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy 2 years prior, a thickening of the heart muscle that turned every heartbeat into a potential betrayal. It was genetic, she'd explained, inherited from a father who died young, leaving her with a ticking clock she refused to acknowledge publicly. "I don't want pity," she'd said fiercely, eyes flashing in the low light. "I want to live like this, with you, without the world knowing until I have to." I'd held her tighter then, my own heart aching with a protectiveness I'd never felt before, not even in the safety of my marriage's illusion. Waking to her now, curls splayed across the throw pillow, lips slightly parted in repose, I felt a surge of something fierce and tender, a love blooming in the ruins of the night. But fear nipped at its heels. What if this was temporary, a post-party haze that evaporated with a hangover? What if her condition made her pull away, or worse, if loving her meant watching her slip through my fingers? She stirred, hazel eyes fluttering open to meet mine, and smiled that slow, sunlit curve that made my stomach flip. "Morning, beautiful," she murmured, stretching like a cat, her dress rumpled but her presence electric. I leaned down, pressing a kiss to her forehead, tasting the salt of dried tears from her earlier vulnerability. "Coffee," I offered, needing the ritual to ground me. She nodded, propping herself on an elbow, watching as I padded to the kitchen, whiskey weaving between my ankles with accusatory meows. Over steaming mugs, hers black, mine with a splash of oat milk, we talked logistics, the practicalities that follow first nights. "I should go," she said reluctantly, glancing at her phone, but her body language screamed the opposite, feet tucked under her on the stool. "Work's a beast today, client revisions on that indie band's EP." I nodded, masking the pang, and walked her to the door, where the hallway light buzzed faintly, casting her in a halo. Our goodbye kiss was slower this time, exploratory, hands roaming with the confidence of dawn's clarity. "Text me," I whispered against her lips. "All day. Every day." She laughed, soft and promising. "Deal." "And Nora?" "Last night. It was real." She left in a swirl of rain-scented air, the door clicking shut behind her, and I leaned against it, sliding to the floor as the high crashed. What now? I'd spent my 20s building walls, marrying Mark because he was safe, steady, the kind of guy my conservative Midwest parents approved of during holidays in Ohio. Coming out? It wasn't even on the radar until her touch rewrote the script. I pulled out my phone, fingers hovering over my best friend's contact, Lila, the one who dragged me to that gallery show. "You won't believe what happened," I typed, then deleted, too raw to share yet. Instead, I scrolled to Elena's number, saved from a group chat months ago, and sent. "Already missing your chaos. Safe travels on the subway beast." Her reply buzzed instantly, ditto. "Thinking of your lips. More soon." The day blurred into routine, shower, freelance edits on a enemies to lovers trope that now felt prophetic, a walk to the bodega for bagels that tasted like ash because my mind was elsewhere. By afternoon, texts flowed, her complaining about a color palette gone wrong, me sharing a meme about post-party depression, escalating to flirty emojis that made me blush in the coffee shop line. It felt effortless, this budding thing between us, like we'd been orbiting each other for years, planets finally aligning. But evening brought the first crack. I was midway through a Netflix rom-com, irony not lost, when my phone rang, Lila's face popping up.
"Spill, heis."
"You ghosted the group chat after the party. Hot single dad from accounting make a move." I laughed, but it came out strained.
"No, that's just
complications." She pressed, her voice turning serious through the speaker. "Complications like what?" "You've been off since the divorce."
"Talk to me."
I hesitated, the words I'm falling for a woman lodging in my throat like glass. Lila was an ally, married to her college sweetheart, but admitting this aloud felt like leaping without a net. "It's Elena," I finally said. "From the gallery."
We.
Connected. Like really connected. Silence, then a whoop that rattled my eardrums. "Vasquez? The artist with the killer tattoos?" "Nora, that's huge. About time you ditched the straight-laced script." Her excitement buoyed me, but as we dissected the night, omitting Elena's health for now, the doubts crept back. What if Elena's truth changed everything? I ended the call with promises of double dates, curling up with whiskey, who purred judgment-free. Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with heartbeats erratic as drums, Elena's face morphing from lover to ghost. The next morning, a knock shattered the quiet, not the buzzer, but actual knuckles on wood. Heart leaping, I yanked open the door to find Elena, takeout bag in hand, grinning like she'd won the lottery. "Surprise delivery. Tacos from that spot we talked about. Figured you'd need fuel after last night." She breezed in, planting a kiss that tasted like lime and possibility, and just like that, the fog lifted. We ate cross-legged on the rug, trading bites and stories, her childhood sketching in church pews, my failed attempt at poetry in undergrad. Laughter filled the space, chasing shadows, but midway through her tale of a disastrous first date with a musician who ghosted mid-song, her hand faltered on the fork, a subtle wince crossing her features. "You okay?" I asked, concern sharpening my voice. She waved it off, but her color had paled. "Just a twinge. These things come and go." The thing, her heart, the silent saboteur. I wanted to press, to demand details on meds and checkups, but her eyes pleaded for normalcy, so I let it slide, pulling her into my lap instead, our bodies fitting like puzzle pieces worn smooth by time. We made love there on the floor, slow and reverent, exploring with whispers and gasps, her skin like silk under my hands, every sigh affirmation that this, us, was worth the risk. Afterward, sated and sweaty, we lay staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin. "I meant what I said," she murmured, tracing my collarbone.
No pity. But.
"I want you to know me, all of me. Doctor's appointments, bad days, the works." Tears pricked my eyes, not from fear, but from the honor of it. "I'm in," I promised. "All the way." But as she dressed for a late meeting, stealing one last kiss, a text pinged on her phone, her sister, asking about family dinner. The screen lit her face in blue, and I glimpsed the reply draft. "Can't make it."
Work.
A lie, small but sharp, and it hit me. Her world outside ours was a minefield. Family ties knotted with expectations she navigated alone. That night alone, doubts resurfaced like weeds. I paced the apartment, rain pattering again, wondering if I could be the partner she needed, strong enough for the scares, brave enough to claim this love publicly. A call to my mom in Cleveland, ostensibly about Thanksgiving, veered into safe topics until she asked, "Any nice boys on the horizon, sweetie?" The old script rose, but I swallowed it. "Actually, Mom, there's someone. A woman." Silence stretched, then a hesitant, "Oh, well, as long as she makes you happy." Progress, fragile as eggshell, but it steadied me. Elena's next visit brought escalation, a weekend getaway to the Catskills, her idea, packed with hikes and stargazing to recharge. We drove up in her beat-up Subaru, windows down, indie playlists blasting, her hand on my thigh the whole way. The cabin was rustic charm, wood beams, stone fireplace, and we fell into it like pros, cooking pasta by candlelight, dancing barefoot to vinyl records. But on the second night, as fireflies blinked outside, she clutched her chest mid-laugh, doubling over with a gasp that iced my blood.
Elena.
I was at her side in seconds, rubbing her back, phone in hand dialing 911. "It's passing," she wheezed, but I wouldn't hear it, bundling her into the car for the nearest ER in Woodstock. The wait was agony, fluorescent lights buzzing, her hand clammy in mine, until the doctor emerged. Arrhythmia, stabilized with meds, nothing new but a reminder. In the discharge room, she cried, not from pain, but release. I'm sorry you had to see that. I cupped her face. Don't be. This is us now, together. Driving back in silence, stars wheeling overhead, I realized love wasn't the fairy tale edits I polished for a living. It was this raw, relentless real. Back in the city, our rhythm solidified, mornings tangled in sheets, evenings at queer open mics in the village where she sketched crowds and I read bad poetry to cheers. But tension brewed when her family loomed. A cousin's wedding in Jersey, invitation extended politely, subtext screaming bring a date, but make it straight. Elena agonized over it, pacing my living room, torn between authenticity and peace. They love me, Nora, but they don't get me. Not this part. I pulled her close. Then show them. With me on your arm. The wedding was a minefield of floral arches and champagne toasts, her relatives' eyes widening at our linked hands, whispers trailing like smoke. Her mother, a sturdy woman with Elena's eyes, pulled her aside mid-reception, voices rising in Spanish-inflected English. I hovered, heart pounding, until Elena stormed back, tears streaking mascara. She said it's a phase. That you're a rebound. Rage flared, but I channeled it into calm, facing her mom with steady gaze. With respect, ma'am, I'm not. And Elena's heart, literally, deserves the truth, not tolerance on your terms. The confrontation hung heavy on the drive home, Elena silent until we hit the turnpike. You didn't have to do that.
I glanced over.
Yes, I did.
For you.
For us. She reached for my hand, squeezing. I love you, Nora.
God, I do.
The words landed like grace, dissolving the night's poison. In bed that night, we clung fiercely, bodies and souls intertwining, whispering futures amid the storm. Weeks blurred into a montage of milestones. Our first pride flowed in Manhattan, rainbows painting our faces as we kissed under confetti cannons, lazy Sundays at the High Line, her head on my shoulder watching the Hudson flow. Her health stabilized with beta blockers, checkups becoming our shared ritual, me quizzing her on symptoms like a devoted nurse. But cracks widened when work intruded, my editor pushing a deadline on a Sapphic thriller that mirrored us too closely, Elena's studio demanding overtime on a high-profile gig. Arguments sparked over small things, forgotten texts, canceled plans, the exhaustion of hiding her condition from colleagues who pried. One explosive night, after she'd bailed on movie night citing fatigue, I confronted her in the kitchen, voice cracking. Is this sustainable, Elena? Or am I just the intermission before you face the real fight alone? She whirled, eyes blazing. You think I want to push you away? This thing in my chest, it doesn't just scare me, it terrifies you. I see it in your eyes. Tears fell then, mutual, and we collapsed into each other, apologies tumbling. I'm scared, I admitted, of losing you, but more of not fighting for every second. She nodded, fierce. Then fight with me. Promise. Renewed, we dove deeper, joining a support group for LGBTQ+ folks with chronic illnesses, where stories of resilience fortified us. I came out fully to my parents over FaceTime, their awkward pride warming the pixels. Elena's family thawed slowly, her sister texting invitations to brunches, tentative bridges built. But fate tested us cruelly when a routine echo revealed progression, her ejection fraction dipping, surgery on the horizon. The news hit like a freight train. She withdrew, canceling dates, burying in work. I gave space, but not silence, leaving notes on her fridge. Your heart beats for us. Remember that. The intervention came unplanned, a rainy Tuesday when I found her sketching alone in Washington Square Park, face streaked with rain and regret. I sat beside her, umbrella shielding us both. I can't do surgery without you, she confessed, voice breaking. But I can't drag you into the OR. I took the pencil from her hand, drawing a clumsy heart around our initials in her notebook. Drag me? This is where I belong. We cried there, amid buskers and pigeons, then walked home arm in arm, planning logistics, pre-op diets, post-op care, a life recalibrated but unbroken. The operation loomed like a shadow, but we filled days with light. Picnics in Prospect Park, her teaching me to mix margaritas with family recipes, me reading her bedtime stories from my manuscript, weaving our tale into fiction. Mount Sinai's halls became familiar, pre-op jitters eased by her grip on mine, surgeons' assurances a mantra.
She's strong, they said.
And loved. In recovery, I waited, heart in throat, until she woke groggy, first words a whisper. Nora. We did it. Months of rehab followed, physical therapy sessions where I'd cheer her through laps, quiet nights when pain flared and I'd hold ice packs, murmuring affirmations. She emerged transformed, scar a badge across her chest, spirit fiercer. Our love deepened, roots entwining through trials, blooming in ways I'd never dreamed. One crisp autumn evening, as leaves swirled in Central Park, she dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but a sketch. Us. Older, gray-haired, hands clasped under a Brooklyn brownstone awning. "Marry me?" she asked, eyes shining. Not despite the scars, but because of them. Tears blurred the lines, but my yes was thunderous. We celebrated with rooftop tacos, city lights winking approval, toasting to truths unearthed in the afterglow of chaos. The party had ended, yes, but in its wake, we'd built a life, naughty, beautiful, ours. And in Elena's heart, mended in mine, I found not just love, but the profound grace of being seen, scars and all.